And it was on this day, the 2nd of February 2022, that I finished Alloy of Law, the first book of the second era of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. You know, I kind of set this aside for a while. It's been like a year since I finished Mistborn 1. I set this aside because I was like, I won't compare. You know, I never read a sequel series to a series before, technically. I don't think I ever have. So I thought, you know, they're so tiny, they won't be much. I was wrong. I was very wrong. Oh my goodness. This was a blast. It was so much fun, and it's so deceptive. It looks, you know, it's so small, right? Like, it's so tiny. I mean, look, it's so tiny. Oh my goodness, though, it is packed and just such a fun. It's just fun. It's so much fun. You get to, like, dabble back into the world again, and everything. I didn't realize how much I missed Mistborn until I read this, and I was like, man, this world is awesome. It's just so... such a fun world. So, anyway, actually getting into the non-spoiler section, which I'm just going to be generalizing just like I just did for the most part, but for real, I love seeing how the world has advanced since the end of Era 1. I don't actually know how long it's been between books. It says at the beginning. Hold on one second. I should have looked beforehand, I'm sorry. Heckin' cool map. This city looks amazing, man. It is such a cool design. Anyway, how long has it actually been? I think it says past the prologue. It actually tells you. 6 months later. That doesn't help me. That still doesn't help me. Where is it? Here we go. 341 is the year on the newspaper. Also, there's newspaper pages. Also freaking cool. It says 341, so I don't know if that's 341 years after Era 1, or if that means something else. I may be completely wrong, but some amount of time has passed. In fact, a heck of a lot of time has passed. Enough time to be in the Industrial Era, which is one of my favorite eras of US history. And it's so freaking cool. Maybe Industrial Era is the wrong term to use. It's in there, though. It's like, you know, right when the Mach union thing started happening in the US. It's right in there. You got your railroads and your trains and all that. You got the like beginning of like good guns and stuff like that, you know, beyond rifles and flintlocks, and you're actually getting into revolvers and stuff. It's just such a perfect time period to choose for something like this, and it's so yeah, I love seeing the new age, the new era, but in the same world with the same abilities, and there's all these callbacks to the history of like what used to be the old world. There's all these locations that you're like, oh, that is that, but they've renamed it now because time has passed, and it's so cool. And there's like the religions come back from the first series, like the religions and the kind of mythologies, the folklore, I guess would be the best word in this case. There's so many folklore things, like theories that people have now, thinking back about the first series, which I've read, right? So you come in with all this knowledge of how the previous world actually was, but these people, hundreds of years later, supposedly, don't really have a link back to that. So there's like the stories and retellings and stuff, but maybe some of them are a little exaggerated, but maybe some of them are accurate and they don't realize how accurate it is. It's very cool to have that link between the two series, and be able to compare them as you go. You know, there's all these retellings. It's kind of awesome. I'll get more into that for the spoilers with the specific retellings, but I think that is very cool to be able to have that link between them. And in general, not even just seeing the era, but also seeing how society and stuff is developing at that very moment of time. So not only are they in the industrial era, but you can tell that architecture is getting a lot of leeway, and one of the main characters is a woman going to university to be freaking awesome and badass. So, you know, feminism, go women. I'm just saying. So, I don't know, you get to see how different the world is, and how it's still changing to be even more different. I think it's freaking awesome. So that was one of the things that right off the bat I was like, ooh. And the second thing that hit me right off the bat is how the magic changed, but is the same. It's fascinating. So again, a lot of time has passed, which means that they have had plenty of time to find the other alloys. And most of them have been found. So now we have all the missing pieces before, and we get to figure out, we learn these new abilities, even though a lot of the old ones were already covered. We're still learning new ones because it took time for them to discover the new ones, which supposedly now we have all of them, but we may be wrong. Maybe we don't have all of them, so we'll see. But if 16 is correct, it's technically a spoiler. But we get to see new abilities, but at the same time we also get to see more of the races spread out, right? In the first series, the races were kind of all by themselves and not really intermixing that much. In the post-world, there's actually, it seems to me that there's like a lot more like crossing between the different races, and so you get pairs of people, which you couldn't get before. So you get some crossover in different powers and, you know, developments in people, and that's also freaking cool. So that's another way we get to see new powers, is we get to see people who have multiple powers because of their different lineage. It's really cool. So also love seeing how that came into play in here, and I kind of really want to see more of it because the possibilities have just gone very cool. One of the things I want to note, fascinatingly, is that one of the things I comment a lot in books that I like maybe struggle with is like very long fight scenes. Sometimes there's like a point you reach where it's like too much and it's like I can't focus on it anymore. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels that way about some things. It happens with like Dresden Files, and it happened with Powder Mage and Belgariad. It happened a lot in a lot of the series I read. This book had a very long fight scene in the climax, and I was there all the way. I was all for it. I read every word in it. It was just an amazing fight scene. So something I noticed is all the fight scenes in this book, I was there. I was all through it. So amazing. Very exciting. It might be the powers. It's just the powers are just so fascinating, and I just want to know everything about them. So maybe that's part of it, but it's pretty amazing. So yay. I kind of said this already, but I'll repeat it again. For how small this thing is, it is packed. It's packed with action, but also it's not always action. It has the theory and the mystery. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And, you know, it's not too fast-paced. It actually feels like a pretty average pace, even though there's so much in it. I think it's just because every part of it is relevant. There's nothing, like, irrelevant happening in this book per se. It just goes. It's so smooth how it transitions between the different chapters, and it's just very well written. So, amazing book. Obviously, I mentioned the mystery and like the law aspect of this book because, you know, alloy of law. It's kind of in that train era, you know, like Doc Holliday kind of things. Has a lot of that's mystery and law are some of my favorite things ever. Forensics is very fascinating to me. You know, following the investigators is one of my favorite things to do. And this book did that because we had two lawmen. But not only were they lawmen, but they were like investigating and stuff like that. Later I'll mention that it feels like there's like a Sherlock Holmes moment. It feels like the main character is Sherlock Holmes and you're like following him through all of it. And Wayne is like Watson. You have Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and that's basically my best analogy for how this book is. It's Sherlock Holmes, but in the Wild West, except you're in the industrial part of the Wild West. It's very cool, and I love it so much. So, again, it's packed. There's a lot of that mystery and investigation and stuff like that that fills in the times where there isn't action. And I still love those bits. I really, really love those bits. So, that's very good. Following directly after that makes perfect sense. I love all three of the main characters, especially our Sherlock and Watson is what I'll refer to them as. I love them so much. So, I classify the three main characters as Wax, Wayne. This is called the Wax and Wayne series, I hear, so makes sense. And Marisai, I don't know how to say her name, I'm sorry. I love all three of them, like a lot. I think it will take some time for Steris to grow on me. We didn't really see her too much in this book, which makes sense. So, if she grows on me, it might take time. It's possible she won't. We don't know. But the three main ones, though, I adore with my heart. I love them so much. So, again, one of the fastest ways to get to my heart is to have amazing characters, and these characters are all smart, like they're all intelligent. They all have like their own abilities and skills. They all have great banter humor, or like the kind of stoic kind of humor where they're like, well, that sucked kind of humor. And it's great. It's so tiny, but there's so much going on, and I love it. So yeah, there's just, I adored this book. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, I'll be honest. It took me, it wasn't until, like, the epilogue, that I had maybe one possible issue with the book. Like, I just adored everything about it up until that very moment, so it's a great book. You have to read the first series first, and that's the thing. You can't just pick this up and read it. But if you've read the first series, this is just fun. It's just a little journey. It's so much fun. So, I definitely recommend. All the callbacks and the nostalgia. You get this nostalgia. It reminds you of the first series, and yet it reminds you nothing of the first series. And so, it's pretty amazing. I love that on the back. If you haven't read the first series, this will be nonsense. But on the back it says, Kelsier, Vin, Ellen, Sace, and Spook have become legend. And I love it, because those are our people. It's so amazing. I love it. Anyway, so that is really all I have for non-spoilers. And all I'm going to say in spoilers is call out specific scenes and talk about the one thing I can maybe have issue with, which I'm sure will get better with the next book, and then it won't be an issue anymore. It's not even an issue at all. So anyway, I'll get into that with the spoilers that are starting now. Leave or forever hold your peace. Ow. That actually hurt. I keep hurting myself in these sections. Alright. As for spoilers. Spoilers. I prepared myself this time. For spoilers, there's the reveal at the very end of the book that the uncle was kind of behind it all. Which, you know, motives and those things, we don't know the motives or those things quite yet. We didn't know the uncle's personality coming in that much. Wax didn't talk about the uncle that much. But that reveal at the end was kind of like, that's a little jarring. I don't know why Wax decided to just go up to him. You know, if Wax suspected that he was the person running it all along, I personally don't understand why he just approaches him, per se. Because if he's doing all these bad things, and he ordered you dead twice, why would you walk up to him? It kind of felt like a James Bond moment to me, you know, kind of like there's a villain cliche where they feel the need to explain themselves to him and then not kill him. So, you know, that's my one thing. It might work out. It might work out with the other two books. Yeah. But that was maybe the one thing that stood out to me, was the walk up to the bad guy explains part of everything to you and gives you answers and then lets you leave. I don't know. I feel on that. But that is the one spoiler thing I felt on. Next, just in general, I love Wayne, and I love Marisi, and I love Wax. Wax is freaking badass. But, like, Wayne is hilarious, and Marisi is just so awesome. I love her. She's, like, kind of like an idol in a weird way, a reverse idol. I'm, like, cheering her on. Forensic science. Okay, I'm back. So, I was talking about there how forensic science is one of the fields I was interested in, and I took some courses in it and stuff like that, and it was something I was actually interested in doing as a career for a while, you know, investigations, and maybe a tad bit on, like, the law side, but I was interested in that for a while, and I love that Marisi did that, because I was like, you know, it kind of reminded me that that was something I had interest in for a while, and I wanted to cheer her on through her going through that. That's what I was trying to say when apparently my video recording ended. Oops. I actually said a lot, so we're just gonna restart. Oops. So, looking at my notes, the next thing I was going to mention is that just in general, the characters are really smart. They're kind of figuring out the investigation aspects and stuff like that, and they also have to outsmart the robbers and the other lawmaker, Miles, because Miles is lawman. I don't know why I said lawmaker. Because Miles is also a lawman, he's also very smart. He knows how to think about it. So the book is all about all of them outsmarting each other and, you know, coming up with creative solutions to pretty difficult problems, or creative solutions to puzzles on how the actual robberies are happening or stuff like that. So there's the scene where Wax, I almost said Max, where Wax uses a steel push to, like, hide all of his items under the table, or there's when he dropped the dynamite outside the thing and there's the string and they did not notice because they were fools at the end. And, you know, all those scenes, it's just satisfying to have that mystery, intelligence, figuring out solutions kind of thing. The fake blood was great. It really Sherlock Holmes. Quick note was that there was a foreshadow earlier in the book that Marisi, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong, doesn't like that she has a slow field power, and they're like, surely it will come of use, and then it came of use at the end. So I saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming until it was happening. It still took a while for my brain to put it together. Maybe I'm just stupid, but I love that I still didn't even notice, even though I saw the foreshadow and was looking for it. And the way she used it was pretty damn smart. So I love that it came of use. After that, I talked about how I'm going to speed up. I'm going to do it faster than I did last time. But I was playing Sherlock Crimes and Punishment last year, the video game. And one of the mysteries is that there was a train, and then a ghost train arrived, and it confused the heck out of people, and then the train was gone. Dun-dun-dun. This may sound familiar. That's what happened in this book. So I thought it was interesting that there was kind of a direct link between these, that they had the ghost train, which, by the way, was done the exact same in both things. One, they both had the little lever thing with the spotlight and the train horn. So that part was done the exact same, but, you know, the rest of the different investigations were different. They were using canals with a crane. It's pretty damn cool. Over there, they were switching the tracks and just wheeling the train off, and I think they drowned it in a lake, which is kind of sad and sucky, but different but the same, and I thought it was interesting that there's a link between them. I don't know why my recording keeps canceling itself, so I'm going to be checking it constantly now, because I'm terrified it's going to do it again. So anyway, that was something very fascinating and interesting to me. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm just going to show it again. Maybe I won't. There we go. The newspaper pages are freaking cool. It foreshadows something that happened later. So I wonder if the actual text, especially with this one, about this guy named, Jack? This guy named Jack. I'm wondering if he will show up in maybe one of the later books, because it keeps mentioning him on these newspaper pages. So I am curious about if that's a foreshadow or if it's kind of like filling in some of the world building. So fascinating. I love this art. It's very pretty. So yeah. And then the last thing I had of note, the second time I've said this, the third time I've said this now, is that I'm curious to learn more about the world building and politics, of course, as always. So we got to learn so much and see how much the world grew and everything in this book, but I'm always hungry for more, and I love world building, so I would be glad and happy to be able to learn more, maybe about the different octans or the other houses, or seeing more, seeing usage of some of the other alloys. I still think there's some alloys we've never seen used at all. Hold on, let me look at the list of alloys. I don't know if we've ever seen nigrosyl, ever. I don't remember it. Or I don't remember it being called that either. Maybe that's it, but nigrosyl, chromium. I don't think we've seen chromium yet. It's kind of interesting. So, you know, kind of want to see those, see more new things. We saw the massive vault tank thing, right? This was invented during the book. I want to see more inventions as this era progresses. You know, there's electricity, and they mentioned the first cars. The first cars are coming around, motor cars. Very cool. So, in general, as always, I want to know more. But that's what these are for, which gets to our next section. This was Alloy of Law, the first book of Era 2 Mistborn, also known as the Wax and Wane series. And the next book I'm reading is the second book, Shadows of Self. And then after that I have Bands of Mourning. And that will be the end of this trilogy. Turns out, I found out the other day, this is not a trilogy. There's a fourth book coming out fall of this year. Apparently. I already forgot what the name of the book is, but there's a fourth book to this coming out this year. So it will be becoming a tetralogy. And supposedly, based on what I read, that will be the last book of this series. So, I did not know that until I already started this book, so we just went with it. So, yeah. Shadows of Self is next. It's a little bit bigger. I think Bands of Mourning is the biggest. Yeah, Shadows Itself is next, and Bands of Mourning is the biggest of the three. My screen keeps darkening. There we go. And after I finish this, and after we wait for the fourth book, I'll read the fourth book when it comes out. I'm going to finish these before then, though. After I finish these, and I'm in the process of waiting for the fourth book, I am fairly sure that I'm finally gonna get to this. I have waited for 2 years now to read this series. Oh my god, more than 2 years now, actually. I've waited like 2 years and like 4 months to read this series. I've been very, very interested in it for a long time. I love the idea, and I love the everything that I've heard about it. And the reason I kept postponing it, aside from the fact that it's heckin' big, there's 9 books that are this big. Aside from the fact that it's heckin' big, is I didn't know if I was ready yet. Like, I didn't know, you know, I wanted to be prepared to just get full-on hooked onto this thing, and I think I'm ready. I'm so excited to read it. I cannot convey how much I've been jumping up and down about reading this book to people recently, or read this series to people recently. In a way, I'm glad I waited, because a lot of the things that I've heard about this book, and I've read maybe like 2 scenes that people sent me, and I'm glad I waited, because if I read this book and came across those scenes, I would not have valued them the same way I do now. I've changed a lot in 2 years. I'm probably going to change a lot in the next 6 months still, you know, time passes, but I would not have appreciated these novels nearly as much if I read them back then, so I'm glad I'm reading them now, because truly, I'm so excited to read this. So, I think a lot of the tiny aspects that I thought were kind of cool back then are gonna, like, have me jumping up and down now. So yeah, this is Leviathan Wakes, the first book of The Expanse. Yes, it's a TV show. No, I have not seen the TV show. I do not plan to watch the TV show. I plan to read the 9 books. I'm so excited. So, yeah. It is big text. Even though it's a huge book, it is huge text. So it should be okay. I'm so excited. Oh, man. It's my sci-fi. Anyway, very, very much excited. So I'm fairly sure that's what I'm going to do after Mistborn Era 2. Because I've been waiting, and I really want to read it. So I don't think I can wait any longer. I think I'm just going to go for it. So yeah. One other book announcement here. I guess 2, actually. I am rereading this book for class, ironically. I've read it multiple times before, but now I have a bunch of quizzes on it in class, so I'm rereading it again. This is like the definition of small. It's part of the title, so not very surprised. It should fly by very fast, so really, it won't distract me from everything, but I figured I would say that I'm rereading this for like the 5th or 6th time now, ironically. And then the last thing I was going to mention was Powder Mage. I've been reading some of the novellas. I've read 2 of the Powder Mage novellas. Just to dabble, you know, figure out what's going on. There's definitely some interesting things going on there. Just in general, figuring out that Thomas went to a masquerade, that's kind of hilarious. So, you know, I've been reading a few of them, and I'm thinking that maybe when I finish reading all the novellas that are out, then I would do like a bulk review of all the novellas. I figured that would work out, so yeah, that is the last thing I had to say about that. So that leaves just one last note, and that is that I finally, I may have been procrastinating, I finally went ahead and labeled all of my videos under the series they're about in playlists. So if you go into the playlist, you can see what books are in what series. The only reason I didn't put the series in the title is because then the title would get super long. So usually I just did the book names. I'm sorry, but now you have them, and they should all be in order. So I have now organized that so it's better. That's all I have for today. I have to edit this back together because my camera hates me. I'll see you all next time. With Shadows of Self. That's Bands of Morning. With Shadows of Self.